The taste of cold, a mortal history. Even now, on a hot summer afternoon, when the first bite of melting ice cream sends its cold tickle across my tongue, I don't see a modern freezer or a shiny shopping mall in my mind. What appears instead is an ancient, dust-covered path, a place where time stands still and stories begin to whisper. This history of frozen sweetness is really a tale of several thousand ice-cold moments floating down the river of time, as old as human civilization itself. Let us walk back to the riverbank. More than 2,000 years ago, in ancient China, a king named Shang sits on the roof of his palace, thirsty. Outside, the desert sun burns like fire. Inside, his mind searches for the impossible. Snow from mountain peaks, fresh fruit and honey mixed together in one perfect creation. That is what he desires. That frozen sweet taste was a symbol of power, because to bring that snow, men had to cross the Himalayas, laborers' feet blistered, all for just a handful of cold. The same desire consumed the Roman Emperor Nero. In his palace kitchens, slaves brought down snow from the mountains and mixed it with expensive wine. Imagine an era with no refrigerators, and yet snow was brought down from the peaks just to satisfy one man's wish. That snow melted in Rome's hot air, merging with the arrogance of power. In the gardens of Persia, the same preparations were underway. Essence squeezed from rose petals, sugar, and ice mixed together to create Sherbet, a sweet melody of Persian culture that still echoes today. Just hearing the word brings the footsteps of ancient travelers carrying the idea of this frozen delight along the paths they tread. Then came the Renaissance Italy. In the palaces of the Medici family in Florence, cooking was considered a refined art, just like painting or sculpture. That old idea from China and Persia found new life in the hands of Italian chefs. They added salt to the ice, a chemical discovery that taught ice to become even more brutally cold. Then they mixed in cream, eggs, and sugar. Now it was no longer just chunks of ice. They had created something smooth, thick, and creamy, something that didn't just touch the tongue, but melted straight into the heart. Legend has it that Marco Polo brought back the secret recipe for this taste from China. The story may be exaggerated, but it shows how deeply this frozen delight had embedded itself in the human heart. The truth is, it was Italy's creative spirit that took it from being a primitive ice chunk of civilization and elevated it to an art form. The year is 1533. 14-year-old Catherine de' Medici leaves Florence for France. She is marrying Henry, who will become King Henry II of France. As dowry, she brings not just jewelry and money, but her trusted Italian chefs, and the creamy cold dish made by their hands arrived at the French royal court carrying the message of a new era. French chefs adopted this Italian guest as their own. They added more cream, refined the texture even further. In 1686, the revolution began at Café Procope in Paris. An entrepreneur from Sicily named Francesco Procopio de Coltelli decided to open up this exclusive luxury of kings to ordinary people. Parisian artists, writers, and philosophers crowded into that cafe, holding a cup of cold sweetness in their hands while discussing ideas that would change the world. Before the French Revolution, perhaps it was in this cafe that the first equal rights for all, the right to taste, was established. By the mid-1700s, this frozen dessert crossed the Atlantic. America's first president, George Washington, had an endless passion for it. History records that during the hot summer of 1790, he spent $200 on ice cream, an enormous sum for that time. Thomas Jefferson brought back his own recipe for vanilla ice cream from France, but still, it remained the luxury of a select few wealthy people. In 1843, a woman from Philadelphia named Nancy Johnson changed everything. Her hand-cranked ice cream freezer marked the beginning of ice cream's democracy. Now anyone could make this frozen dessert at home. Nancy sold her patent for only $1,500. She may not have received wealth, but her name remains written in the pages of history as the craftswoman of cold sweetness who transformed a king's luxury into a common person's celebration. 1904, the St. Louis World's Fair, a gathering of all the world's new inventions. There, a small incident occurred that would become the sweetest coincidence in the history of this frozen treat. A hot afternoon, a long line in front of an ice cream stand. Suddenly, the vendor realized he had run out of cups. At the next stall, crispy, thin waffles were being sold. In his rush to do something, he took a warm waffle, rolled it into a cone shape, and filled it with ice cream. And that is how the ice cream cone was born, from pure accident. Then came the wave of technology. Refrigerators, factories, machines, everything arrived. The price of ice cream fell from sky high to down to earth. During the Great Depression, when all of America was suffering economic disaster, this inexpensive frozen treat brought smiles to people's faces, if only for a moment. In World War II, American soldiers crossed oceans to fight, and ice cream made in floating factories on the sea reminded them of the cool shade of home. Today, ice cream belongs to the whole world. In Japan, they call it matcha. In India, kulfi. In Turkey, dondurma. But when people in every country feel that first cold sensation on their tongues, they're actually tasting what that ancient Chinese king tasted as he chewed chunks of snow brought from the mountains. They are receiving the labor of Roman slaves, the art of Italian cooking, the refinement of French chefs, and the relentless, innovative spirit of Nancy Johnson. Today, when you eat ice cream, you are not just eating something cold and sweet. You are eating thousands of years of history. You become part of all those people who sought coolness in unbearable heat, who dreamed of making the impossible possible. And by listening to this story in English, you are doing exactly that same thing, walking the path of making the impossible possible. Every new sentence, every unknown word is taking you to a new world, a world where not just language, but the story of growing up is written. So keep learning, keep dreaming, and next time you lick an ice cream cone, think about it. How much history lies in this small piece of cold?